Some warnings don't scream, they whisper. And by the time you finally hear them, you're already trapped. I learned that watching my friend Ethan lose everything. Not in one moment, not in one mistake, but slowly, quietly, over time, while convincing himself that love was supposed to hurt. This didn't start with chaos. It started with comfort. He met Claire at a volunteer event downtown. She was late, flustered, apologizing to everyone. And when she knocked over a box of canned food, she laughed at herself instead of getting embarrassed. Ethan noticed how quickly she made people feel at ease. How warm she was, how easy she was to talk to. By the end of the afternoon, they were sitting on the curb sharing pizza and joking about their lives like they'd known each other for years. She told him she studied psychology. He told her he worked in finance. She said he looked serious. He said she looked dangerous, but the good kind. And that's the part people don't understand. Unhealthy relationships don't usually start unhealthy. They start magnetic. For the first few weeks, Claire felt like the best thing that had ever happened to him. She remembered everything. His favorite food, the way his mom used to sing while cooking, how he hated being late. She checked in on him constantly. She cared deeply, sometimes too deeply, but at the same time, it felt flattering. It felt like devotion. One night, while they were lying on her couch, watching something neither of them was paying attention to, she turned toward him and quietly said she was scared he'd leave her someday. He laughed it off, told her she was being dramatic, promised he wasn't going anywhere. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. That was the first warning sign. Not the insecurity, but the intensity behind it. The way she didn't ask. She assumed, but Ethan didn't recognize it as danger. He recognized it as vulnerability. And vulnerability makes good people want to protect, not question. A week later, he showed up 20 minutes late to dinner because of work. She was waiting in her car when he arrived, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. She barely spoke during the meal. When he finally asked what was wrong, she said she felt forgotten. That work always came before her. That he didn't care as much as he said he did. He apologized, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. She softened instantly, said she overreacted, that she just cared too much. That was the second warning sign. Not the emotion, but the pattern. Conflict followed by guilt, followed by relief, followed by closeness. But again, Ethan saw passion, not instability. 3 months in, the jokes started. You're probably going to leave me like everyone else. I'm too much, aren't I? You'll get tired of me one day. He always responded the same way. Reassurance, affection, promises. And she'd smile. But the jokes didn't stop. They grew heavier. More frequent, less playful. That was the third warning sign. Not the fear, but the fact that reassurance never helped. Slowly, Claire began needing constant validation. If Ethan didn't reply within minutes, she'd text again. And again, and again. Then she'd ask if something was wrong. If she'd upset him. If he was mad. If he was losing interest. If he went out with friends, she'd say she felt abandoned. If he stayed late at work, she felt unloved. If he spent time alone, she felt rejected. So he adapted. He stopped going out as much. Stopped making spontaneous plans. Stopped doing anything that might make her anxious. Not because she asked him to. Because he felt responsible for her emotions. That was the fourth warning sign. Not her need, but his shrinking. The first real argument happened over nothing. They were cooking dinner when she asked who Madison was. A coworker whose name popped up on his phone. He explained it was work. She said it was inappropriate. He laughed it off, but she didn't. The mood shifted instantly. She accused him of caring more about Madison than her, of prioritizing other women, of lying. He told her she was overthinking. She told him not to invalidate her. He told her nothing was going on. She said that was exactly what someone hiding something would say. Suddenly, he wasn't defending the truth. He was defending himself. Eventually, she broke down crying, apologizing for overreacting, saying she was just scared of losing him. So he comforted her. And just like that, the argument disappeared. Without resolution, without accountability, without clarity. That was the fifth warning sign. Not jealousy, but emotional reversal. From that point on, women in his life became invisible threats. Co-workers, friends, even family members. She'd ask questions disguised as curiosity, but loaded with suspicion. Who was that? Why were they texting? Why did you like that photo? Why do you need to talk to her? One night, he came out of the shower and saw Claire sitting on his bed holding his phone, scrolling through his messages. When he asked what she was doing, she said she just needed reassurance. When he told her that wasn't okay, she said if he had nothing to hide, he wouldn't be upset. He felt trapped. Defend himself and look guilty. Stay silent and lose privacy. So he apologized and for being uncomfortable. That was the sixth warning sign. Not the invasion, but the justification. The accusations grew louder. The arguments grew more frequent. And every fight followed the same cycle. She accused. He denied. She cried. He apologized. She felt better. Nothing changed, except him. He became quieter, more cautious, more careful with words, more aware of tone, more afraid of conflict, more afraid of honesty. That was the 7th warning sign. Not her behavior, but his fear. Friends noticed. His best friend Marcus pulled him aside one night and told him he didn't seem like himself anymore, that he looked tired, that he was distant, that he canceled plans constantly, that every time Claire texted him, he looked tense. Ethan brushed it off. Said relationships took work. Said Marcus didn't understand. Marcus told him something that stuck. You're shrinking. Ethan ignored it. That was the 8th warning sign. Not criticism, but concern. The first time things crossed into something darker was the night Claire shoved him. Not hard, not violently, but enough to shock him. They were arguing again, over Madison, over nothing, over suspicion that lived entirely in Claire's head but felt real to her body. He finally snapped and raised his voice. She screamed back. He told her she was being irrational. She shoved his chest. Both of them froze. She immediately burst into tears, apologizing, saying she didn't know what came over her, begging him not to leave, saying she hated herself, saying she was broken, saying she couldn't lose him. And instead of addressing the shove, he comforted her. That was the 9th warning sign. Not the shove, but the fear that followed it. After that night, Ethan stopped feeling safe expressing frustration. Every concern turned into a breakdown. Every boundary turned into abandonment. Every disagreement turned into guilt. He learned something dangerous. Her emotions controlled the environment. If she was calm, life was peaceful. If she was upset, everything stopped. So he started managing her emotions instead of living his life. That was the 10th warning sign. Not conflict, but emotional hostage-taking. Slowly, without realizing it, Ethan became isolated. He stopped seeing friends, stopped visiting family, stopped doing things that didn't involve her. Not because she demanded it, but because resistance caused chaos. He told himself it was temporary, that she just needed reassurance, that love meant patience. But what he was actually doing was abandoning himself. That was the 11th warning sign. Not sacrifice, but self-erasure. Then came the night everything cracked. They were supposed to go to a friend's birthday party. Claire was scrolling through his followers and stopped on a girl from college, Lily. Asked why he liked her photo. Asked why he still followed her. Asked if something was going on. Ethan told her it was ridiculous. She told him he was disrespectful. He told her he was done arguing about imaginary betrayals. She told him if he walked out, they were done. He hesitated, and that hesitation changed the relationship forever. He dropped his keys, stayed home, reassured her, apologized. From that moment on, ultimatums became tools. If you loved me, you wouldn't do that. If you cared, you'd choose me. If you leave, don't come back. He stopped choosing. He stopped deciding. He stopped existing independently. That was the 12th warning sign. Not control, but surrender. His mental health deteriorated. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating well, stopped enjoying things. At work, his performance dropped. His boss noticed. His co-workers noticed. But Ethan didn't tell anyone what was really happening, because he didn't want to make Claire look bad, and he didn't want to admit he was trapped. He told himself he was just tired, but he wasn't tired. He was drowning. That was the 13th warning sign. Not stress, but despair. The relationship turned into constant emotional warfare. Accusations, denials, crying, apologies, promises. Repeat. Claire accused him of cheating with no evidence, of hiding things with no proof, of lying when he told the truth, of gaslighting when he defended himself. Eventually, he stopped defending himself at all. He started apologizing just to make it stop. That was the 14th warning sign. Not compromise, but surrendering reality. One night, during another argument, Claire threw his phone against the wall. It shattered, not dramatically, not in rage, but impulsively, and something inside Ethan snapped. Not angrily, clearly. He realized something wasn't just unhealthy, it was unsafe. Not physically, yet emotionally, absolutely. He told her this had to stop, that the relationship was destroying him, that he couldn't live like this anymore. She broke down instantly, told him everyone leaves her, told him she couldn't survive without him, told him she'd hurt herself if he left. And in that moment, love turned into fear, because now staying wasn't about love. It was about responsibility. And responsibility became captivity. That was the 15th warning sign. Not manipulation, but emotional coercion. He stayed. Not because he wanted to, because he was scared. From that point forward, the relationship wasn't about happiness. It was about survival. He felt trapped, responsible, guilty, terrified. He started waking up with anxiety, going to sleep with dread, living in anticipation of the next accusation, the next explosion, the next emotional collapse. He wasn't living, he was bracing. That was the 16th warning sign. Not conflict, but constant fear. Then came the night everything ended. They were arguing again. Over nothing. Over a coworker's dog photo. Over imagined betrayal. Over nothing real, but everything emotional. Voices raised. Tears fell. Objects slammed. Claire accused. Ethan denied. Claire spiraled. Then she screamed something that froze him. "If you walk out that door, I swear I'll hurt myself." He stared at her, heart pounding, hands shaking, mind racing. He begged her to stop talking like that. She told him not to leave. He told her he couldn't stay. She told him she couldn't live without him. And something inside Ethan broke. Not emotionally, but logically. He realized love was no longer part of the equation. This was survival. He grabbed his jacket. She screamed his name. He paused. And then, for the first time in 2 years, he didn't turn back. He opened the door, and behind him, she collapsed. Not dramatically, not screaming, just fell. He turned around to see her on the floor, unresponsive. His chest dropped into his stomach. He called 911 with shaking hands, barely able to speak. He knelt beside her, terrified she'd stopped breathing. Sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in. Questions flew at him. He couldn't think straight. In the ambulance, he stared at her pale face and thought, "This is my fault," even though it wasn't. Trauma doesn't care about logic. At the hospital, doctors said she'd fainted from emotional distress and hyperventilation. She hadn't taken anything. She wasn't dying. Relief hit him, and then something else. Clarity. When he looked at her lying in that hospital bed, monitors beeping, eyes closed, he didn't feel love. He felt trapped, and that scared him more than anything else. When she woke up, she asked if he'd tried to leave her. He didn't lie. She cried, accused him of abandoning her, told him everyone leaves, told him she needed him, told him she had nothing without him. And for the first time, he didn't comfort her. He told her the truth. That this relationship was destroying both of them. That he couldn't be her entire world. That he couldn't survive like this. She stared at him like she didn't recognize him. Then she turned away, and he walked out of the hospital, shaking, heartbroken, terrified, but free. Leaving didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. He cried in his car, apologized out loud to nobody, almost turned around, almost went back. But something inside him stayed firm, for once. The weeks after were brutal. Messages flooded in. Apologies, promises, accusations, begging, threats, guilt, love, rage. Every text pulled him back emotionally. Every notification reopened the wound. Eventually, he blocked her. Not because he hated her, because he wanted to live. And that was the hardest realization of all. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is leave. The emotional damage didn't disappear when the relationship ended. He struggled with anxiety, nightmares, guilt, self-doubt, depression. He replayed everything. Why didn't I leave sooner? Why didn't I see it? Why did I stay? Therapy gave him the answer. He didn't ignore the warning signs because he was stupid. He ignored them because he was hopeful, because he was empathetic, because he believed love meant endurance, because nobody teaches you what emotional abuse looks like when it doesn't leave bruises. His therapist asked him when he first felt something was wrong. He said 3 months in. She asked why he didn't leave then. He said because he thought love meant staying. She told him love means safety. That sentence changed everything. He realized the scariest part wasn't the yelling or accusations. It was how slow it happened. If Claire had been cruel from the beginning, he would have left. But she wasn't. She was wounded, vulnerable, loving, afraid. And that's how unhealthy relationships trap good people. Not with cruelty, but with need. He started reconnecting with friends. Marcus hugged him and said, "Welcome back." His mom cried when she saw him and said she'd missed him. That was the moment Ethan realized how much of himself he'd lost. Months later, he ran into Claire at a coffee shop. She looked calmer, softer, different. She told him she was in therapy. She apologized. She said she loved him. She said she didn't know how to love without fear. He told her he hoped she healed. And when she walked away, he didn't feel anger. He felt relief. That's when he knew he'd survived. The hardest lesson wasn't that love can hurt. It was that love isn't supposed to. He learned that empathy without boundaries becomes self-destruction. That loyalty without safety becomes captivity. That compassion without self-respect becomes disappearance. And most importantly, he learned that the real warning signs weren't her jealousy, her accusations, her breakdowns, or even her threats. The real warning sign was this: he stopped feeling safe being honest. That's when a relationship is already over. You just haven't accepted it yet. He told me something I'll never forget. I kept rebranding danger as devotion. Jealousy became passion. Control became care. Fear became love. He said people think abuse looks like cruelty, but sometimes it looks like someone saying, "I can't live without you," and you thinking that's romantic instead of terrifying. He said the most dangerous relationships don't start with hatred. They start with hope. And the real tragedy isn't breaking someone else's heart. It's breaking your own by staying too long. He told me if he could talk to his past self, he'd say this: the moment you feel afraid to be yourself, the relationship is already dead. You're just the last one to know. He said he didn't lose Claire the night he left. He lost himself the night he stayed after he knew he shouldn't. And that's the part nobody warns you about. Love that costs your peace is too expensive. And warning signs aren't there to scare you. They're there to save you. But only if you listen, because some warnings don't scream. They whisper. And by the time they start shouting, you've already lost everything.